Wow, media this morning, you can't fake this. Exactly what I told you yesterday, but now Spun news today about, these 8 points that Daniel Smith and Francois Legault share is somehow related to Albertans are going to do so much better in this version of an autocratic system where Danielle Smith and her parliament, her legislature, in civil law, civil code, Napoleonic civil code, is somehow going to increase and make better the lives of Albertans. Going with the narrative Francois Legault, I have to ask Ben Shapiro, is this what you thought when you backed Daniel Smith just 2 days ago in the gala? Is this what you wanted to see? Because this is pure autocracy. Lying to millions of Albertans and Quebecois about somehow let's transfer sovereignty to the legislatures. Let's give them sovereignty, not the people of Alberta or Quebec. Give it to the legislative branch, aka entirely the Premier, and she'll decide on what judiciary will go forward. Folks, there is not an example in this world of any government successfully doing that. Not a one. That's called pure absolute autocracy. You will find this in Sharia law, nutcase countries. You will find this North Korea, absolutely, and many other radical dictatorial countries. This is what Premier Daniel Smith and Francois Legault are attempting to do in the design that's found exclusively for Sharia law civil code countries. Absolute. They have usurped the judiciary. There is no more judiciary. Now, folks are confusing the idea with justices being appointed and justices being sworn. If you're a justice that's sworn and you're appointed, they're two different things. In USA, they have the most advanced independent judiciary in the entire world. The judges are not sworn to anything but the U.S. Constitution and the people of the United States. How they make judgments in relation to that goes by originalist or interpretive. Now, in Canada, they're sworn to the federal monarch, the power of the federal government. Now, people are saying, that's bad, and it is. It's a king's court. But outside of Quebec, we're common law of precedent. If you switch to civil code, not only, first I'll explain civil code. Civil law and civil code means as legislation's written, judges must rule on how the legislators wrote the legislation. They make judgments based on that. If you allow the legislative branch who makes the laws interpret according to what the legislatures want, you're done. Means any law they wish to craft will be imposed on to you, the people. How do you think that's working out for the Sharia law folks in the extremist Muslim countries? Please, somebody show me an example where that's worked out really well for the people who, the women, you can only see their eyes often. That's it. And if you show an ankle, you get stoned to death. Pretty good laws, right? Where you marry off children underage to adult men over the age of 18 and girls as low as 15 and some even under that. This is how radical it can get. And you can say, that's not going to happen in Quebec and Alberta. It already is. under secularism laws and this Bill 21 that America, under Donald J. Trump, you're going to see the tariffs related to that bill today. That is absolute for Quebec. How bad it can get. How evil these systems can get. And we're just seeing Francois Legault dip his feet into that water. Can you imagine Daniel Smith, who's stripped naked, as I said yesterday, and done a jumping cannonball right in? Dismiss the whole judicial branch. Parliamentary sovereignty. That means not sovereignty for you, the people. And if you think these people are going to roll out provincial constitutions, you're mistaken. Canadians need to wake up and wake up in a hurry, because they have not written any constitutions. You have an Executive Powers Act, which bestows extreme autocratic power on the title of Premier and Lieutenant Governor. That's it. Very short documents that read like a military regime. They're short. They've been around forever for all provinces. They get one. Can you imagine cutting out any checks and balances of even the federal constitution? Folks, you take away the federal constitution, you've lost any and all rights and any interpretation on all your rights. Meaning the Premier alone and their cabinet will decide what your rights are and what they're not. They will write laws against even the Charter. As not enforced as that is, as we saw in COVID, it still has precedent law where we see the judges have ruled in the people's favor, at least in many, many avenues that you don't want to lose. Human and civil rights, at least made by the United States of America, forced upon Canada throughout the years. If you remove that equation of a justice system from Canada's provinces, aka Alberta and Quebec, and you move on to the civil code, all bets are off. We roll the clock back to pre-1945, which means goodbye USA, goodbye human and civil rights and all the achievements USA has completed and bound into international law. You will see provinces like Alberta and Quebec making it up as they see fit. What is for their sovereignty? Read the letter by Daniel Smith. There is no sovereignty for Albertans, just as Francois Legault is not writing any sovereignty for Quebecois. It's sovereignty of the elected premier, supreme leader, just like these Muslim countries. In fact, Quebec is in civil law, in civil code, the only one of its kind in Canada, and in fact, North America besides Mexico. Folks, if you think that system's good, where you pay for justice, you're sadly mistaken. Now, people can say whatever about Mexico, and they love it. Well, I don't think so. I think that all Canadians in a mass majority affiliate more with the United States, at least in that perspective, than they do Mexico. I don't like the future here. I don't like the idea of us, the people, being written out completely. We are barely there federally, but at least there's documentation in a constitution that gives us some provisions, and there's common law precedent, meaning what judges have ruled in like cases has to go, meaning judges don't get to make a new narrative. If we go outside of that, all bets are off, all of that is erased, and the legislators, they deem how it's going to go, which means Premier and Privy Cabinet will decide. A worse dictatorship than we're already in King's Court here in Canada. As bad as that is, it can get much, much worse. There is not one example of any country successfully doing what Francois Legault and Daniel Smith are proposing to do. Not one example. And the list is very short, by the way, of countries, Canadians, who have adopted the model that Daniel Smith and Francois Legault are trying to adopt here in Canada. It has nothing again to do with the people's sovereignty. Nothing to do with anything remotely close to what is the United States. In fact, it is treated by the United States as a terrorist system, a military dictatorship where almost all of those, if not fully registered as terrorist organization countries, are absolutely shunned by the United States and under tremendous sanctions. This is loony. I've got to ask Ben Shapiro and his gala and all of that he was pumping out to Republicans. Is this the Canada U Vision 2 for America? Did you get enough money from the province of Alberta? Did they pay you enough as a speaker? Because you are one royal piece of shit American. I wouldn't even call you an American after that display. And folks, if you missed it, Donald Trump issued on Truth Social 30 in an hour, just like he used to do on Twitter with his rants when he was royally pissed off. Now he releases a whole bunch of tweets to links to media where they correctly get what Donald Trump said in all of these issues that Ben Shapiro and Daniel Smith went through to corrupt 10% of Republicans that he reached in his following. Social conservatives. We know all about social conservatism in Canada, aka liberal conservative. It's as old as this crappy country. But when premiers wish to usurp a power with zero checks and balances, without an independent judiciary at all, and take all the sovereignty unto themselves with zero codification of any constitution, you're in trouble. Again, go look at all the countries today who exist. In my last SOS 1, there's a list of 5 for you. 5 for you who have those models. None of which I don't think any Canadian anywhere would appreciate adopting. But absolutely today, Daniel Smith and Francois Legault are trying to negotiate this all behind our backs while we're all wrapped up in tariffs. And so many Albertans blindly, horse blinders on are like this: I'm going to get sovereignty. I'm going to get rid of Ottawa. I'm going to get resources, money. You're not getting nothing. If you haven't looked at your budget that went from $63 billion a year is now at $79 billion a year. You've got a radical socialist at the helm. And if you want to know who supports all of Daniel Smith's actions in the guise of Alberta's going to have more money, then Socialist Worldwide website for the socialist movement worldwide. Yeah, they've published Daniel Smith as a hero and Francois Legault. Run! You're in a dictatorship. I can't make this up. Anyone championing removal of a judicial branch of government is lunatic. Or the idea that one supreme leader runs the judiciary entirely. You're absolutely fucked. You're fucked. And anyone who doesn't see that, I'm sorry. Go look at the entire world in comparative, and you'll find you fall into the most radical nutcase groups the world's ever seen. That's my video. Terrible today as everyone's distracted, and I already know in a huge swath majority, Albertans are already, yeah, Danielle Smith. You don't know what she's created. I've already been watching her intensely. The sheriffs, not elected, they're all appointed and sworn to who? Danielle Smith. way worse than the RCMP that they say they're trying to get rid of and fix for all Albertans. So the Premier's own private army, Donald J. Trump and all politicians in the United States who served office have what's called a Secret Service. That is the equivalency in Alberta under the sheriff's branch of government, policing. They're the bodyguards of the Premier. She's got more than not only all of Donald J. Trump and his administration, but all former presidents and vice presidents and former federal politicians in the entirety of the United States. She's got more for herself than all of them put together. There's 4.7 million Albertans, and there's 342 million Americans. And we're talking way more politicians past, present, current than there is Danielle Smith and her regime by a large margin. But apparently Danielle Smith needs her own private army. And again, when we start looking at dictatorships around the world with that system in place, it's a very small list. You'll find only the most radical lunatics, and a lot of them don't have independent judiciaries either, let alone a judicial branch of government. They've got their own government's system of justice. That should terrify you all. It should terrify everybody, but I know Canadians. No, I don't see it. My resources. Danielle Smith and Francois Legault, they're promising me everything. Why would Danielle Smith be going with Francois Legault when isn't it a mass amount of the equalization payments derived from Alberta going to Quebec? Are they going to be able to change that in their new system? No, because they don't even have the federal authority and they don't even have the right to collect taxes, and they won't. Read your Constitution. Now, she can usurp all of this specific power and remove all Albertans' rights, especially in relation to property. Oh yeah, she'll take all of that away. That's all in there. So, same with Francois Legault. Albertans have no idea what they're meddling in. Americans know. Donald J. Trump knows. This is SOS Part 2. Can't make this up. Look at the link. Look who supports your Danielle Smith and Francois Legault. The Worldwide Socialist Group. Worldwide. This is all the radical communists and civil law socialists. You'll find all the military dictatorships and Sharia law type folks there. They support your Danielle Smith. That should terrify you. That should terrify you. Scary, unbelievable, unimaginable. It's happening right now. We're all distracted with critical things coming today, but this is what she's sneaking in the back door. A lunatic, a psychopath, a crazy, a radical, no different than all of these terrorists and military dictatorships around the world. A very small list of the most extreme. That's where these two premiers are going. Wake up. Share, get it out there. Now we got the links. And go look at that link. Look who's champion. Under the guise of, but Alberta's going to get a bunch of money back. Not Alberta. Your supreme dictator. Again, who went from $63 billion spending to $79 billion for 4.7 million people. Americans' mouths hit the floor. You couldn't even find your most leftist state of the United States to even remotely compare to that per person per capita. Nowhere in the realm of normal. Oh, and you got a $5.7 billion deficit this year. Where does that come from? Oil's not crashed. What's going on here? You're in a dictatorship. Wake up.